Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the Salescast Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we are on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Daryl Amy.
As we begin this new year, one of the questions on everyone's mind is, how am I going to make this year more successful than last year?
We get it. There are only 24 hours in a day. I've always thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if you can create more time?
The good news is you can create more time. Our friends at Work Better Now have cracked the code. With a virtual assistant, you can offload the tasks that consume your time so you can focus on more of what drives results.
Our virtual assistant from Work Better Now has freed up time so we can focus on building the Selling from the Heart movement. It's cost effective and easy.
I know this can work for you. To learn more, visit www.workbetternow.com or click the link in the show notes for a free consultation so you can free up time and make 2024 your best year yet. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Daryl Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, we have all kinds of great things going on. It's another fantastic day here at Selling from the Heart. Great seeing you. We're in for a treat today, let me tell you.
You're going to love our friend Neil Rogers, author of Bar Tips. This is going to be good. Hey, and by the way, we've stepped into this brand new year. We're off to a great start. And one of my favorite things about my week every single week is when we get together with the Selling from the Heart Insiders group on Fridays.
You know, absolutely. It's just a group that gathers every Friday. It's like-minded, like-hearted sales professionals, sales leaders. We get up close, we mastermind, a great time. Special shout out, Joel Smith. It's been a while since we've seen you. I know you're out there. One of the greatest sales leaders both Daryl and I know.
And what's great about the Selling from Our Insiders group is it's where you make friends with like-hearted sales professionals. And we all need, to be successful, we need a community of people cheering us on. Napoleon Hill would call it a mastermind group. This is an incredible opportunity to get engaged in 2024 with like-hearted sales professionals and move not only your success, but also your fulfillment to the next level. So you can get involved right away by clicking the link in the show notes or going to sellingfromtheheart.net/free-pass, and get a free pass to the next Up Close and Personal with the Selling from the Heart Insiders group. I guarantee you're going to thank us.
No, you will. And it was great to see how many times you said free in about 10 seconds. That was good.
We all like free. Well, the other thing we like from time to time, some of us is hanging out at bars. And today we're excited. How was that for a transition?
Oh, that was a great one, Daryl.
We're excited to have Neil Rogers with us today. He is a seasoned expert in sales and marketing and the author of Bar Tips. With over 3 decades of experience across various industries, Neil has distilled his wisdom into this insightful book, drawing parallels between his early bartending days and the world of sales. Neil's journey from behind the bar to the forefront of sales and marketing, along with his role as the owner and VP at Rogers Marketing, has shaped a unique perspective on success. So join us today as we dive into the lessons from Bar Tips and explore how Neil's practical, real-world experiences can inspire your path to success. Neil, welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast. It's great to have you here.
What's up, fellas?
What's going on, Neil Rogers?
Things are going great.
We're going to have a great time today. And as we get started, Neil, you know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast answers, and that is, what does it mean to you, Neil, to sell from the heart?
I think it's to sincerely develop a long-term relationship, doing the small things greatly.
Oh, I love it. And I'm glad you brought the small things. I just got to share a quick story. And this is a shout out to my mother-in-law. And she told me a long time ago, and this was when I was dating, and she wasn't my wife at the time, but you'll get the picture. I was dating. Anyway, nevertheless, my mother-in-law would say this, Neil. She'd go, you know something, Larry? if you can't do the small things correctly, you'll never be able to do the big things correctly. And it just stuck in my head. And it's just sometimes we just fail to do the small things consistently and correctly.
Well, when you tripped that wire in the prelim, and you mentioned Napoleon Hill, that's why that came up.
Yeah,
Absolutely. We're
small
huge
things,
fans.
Yep.
He's right over there.
There you go.
As is Dale, as is Zig.
All the greats. All the greats.
1939.
Yeah.
Still
we stand on the
today.
shoulders of giants.
Massively. I'm on a huge Napoleon Hill journey, Neil, and I'm a big believer that what's forever old is forever new. All the stuff they were talking about decades and decades and decades ago is as relevant today as it's ever been.
Correct. Yeah, no question. It's I quote him in my book. I give homage to everybody that I quote, and they're just brilliant things that you just can't. You can't. It's if you listen to anybody that's made a living as a motivational speaker, they're disciples of those guys.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just more modern, different shape, whatever that may. Obviously Napoleon only interviewed guys. Well, now we interview everybody's in now, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So
I love it. So this book, Bar Tips, you start your journey working behind a bar, and then you find yourselves in sales as an entrepreneur. Talk to us about where the idea from this book came from and how this all came together, because I think this is super, super fascinating.
So as during COVID, for a way to keep myself from losing my mind, I would reach out to people. As salespeople, right? We were people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was tough on everybody, but if you need to be with people like I am, I need to be in a coffee shop, I need to be at a restaurant, I need to be at a bar, whatever that may be, and talking to people. So what I would do is I would, at least part of our regimen anyways, to do a reach out to someone we hadn't heard from in a while. But I would reach out to people. This one guy I reached out to, a guy by the name of Terry McMahon, who wrote the foreword in my book. He had just had life-saving surgery 18 months prior. And he was telling me about all this stuff that he's done. I've written a book. I've written a process. I'm writing a book. I've done this. I've done that. Terry, you sound like Bill Murray from Groundhog Day. Right? How could you have done this after being on your deathbed? I've seen the pictures, right? And he said, "Well, I just did it." And he's big into AI now and whatnot. But he encouraged me. He said, "You should write a book." I said, "What am I going to write on?" Right? Yes, I have a good life. I don't want for anything. I've had successes in my lane, right? In the business that I've been in, top of the stack rankings, awards, all that stuff. And then I started thinking about it, and I said, okay. And just a while, probably about 4 years ago of that time, my daughter was being honored here on campus. I live in a golf community now here in New Hampshire. Yes, we have golf communities in New Hampshire. No, right? And so the clubhouse, and she was being honored by the chamber. Now the chamber, having an award for everything, said it was fastest people to watch under 30. She's now 30, almost 35. And so the guy who was the keynote speaker was this gentleman who brought Five Guys burgers to New Hampshire, right? And he got up and he gave. Did you guys ever work in hospitality?
No,
okay.
Not me personally.
So
Daryl may have. I haven't.
I've made pizzas. How about that? Does that count?
You're in.
All right. You're awesome.
I wouldn't predict you back of the house, but that's okay.
Hey, you got to start somewhere, man. You got to start somewhere.
So that's where I was. That's where I started. And so, anyways, he got up there. So what would happen in a restaurant or this thing called pre-meal, and that's where you get the rah-rah speech, you get the what's out, what's the specials, all that stuff. And his rah-rah speech went like this. Folks, we are not in the burger business. We're not in the fry business. We're not in the soda business. We're not in the shake business. We're in the hospitality business. Now, for a point of context, my wife and I met I was a bartender. She was a food waitress at a place called Tia's in Boston. And I snapped my head to her and I went, I've never left the bar business. I've been bartending on the road for 30 plus years. Same principles, same ideas, being nice, being cordial, taking care of, listening to what they want, giving them what they need. You don't like it here, I can get it over here. You know where to go, whatever that might be. And so I had just, so now fast forward, now we're back into the COVID thing and I'm talking to Terry. And prior to that, I had done some research on how people are using hospitality in their businesses, and, I just, obviously, there's people like Geico and there was a financial services people, and there was a store in Atlanta that we found, just like different niche-y type things that made the customer feel good, had an experience, whatever that was. So I had that piece. So, and then I also had a piece. I had written a little ditty after a birthday party for one of the people that we worked with in this place called the Full Sail in Whitehorse Beach, Plymouth, Massachusetts, America's hometown, on the beach, right? And he, at the time I was 58 years old, and he was turning 70. I said, "Oh, you're 12 years older than me." So he was kind of like, if you guys know the reference of Gidget, remember the movie Gidget? Anybody old enough on the, he had the big kahuna?
I remember Gidget. Daryl may not remember Gidget. I all remember Gidget.
So you get the big kahuna, right? Big kahuna is the guy hanging on, like can't let go. He's 30 years old, hanging out with the 18-year-olds, that guy. So Augie was kind of like that. But anyways, but it was very, being a commuter student, that's my fraternity. The people that I worked with, because I always worked in restaurants and bars during college. College was a long time. And so, I was very emotional about the party. We all got, I got the original t-shirt. I remade them for everybody. So we're all in pictures. So it was just like this. And I wrote probably 4,000 or 5,000 words on it, right? Maybe not that many, 2,000 or 3,000. And then I had another piece that I had written about growing up in that same area, this place of Whitehorse Beach in Plymouth, and the emotion that brought in. So I had like these little bits and pieces. Then I had this thought about the hospitality gig. So I started interviewing people. So I came up with these concepts. I brain dumped them onto an artist pad, right? This, that, whatever, just stream of consciousness. And started piecing it together. And I would talk to, and again, it was great during COVID because I'd be talking to people. I called this woman who I hadn't talked to. I texted her now and again, but I had her on the phone for 2 hours. She owned that Tia's place I was telling you about. And this is when, back in the day, these were coveted jobs. If you wanted to be a bartender, you had to have the skills. You had to be. Now it's almost like, can you fog a mirror? You're in. We'll train you on the fly in some places. And that's the type of service you get. So, and I'm very, very particular about that. And so I interviewed her. I interviewed another gentleman that worked with me at Tia's, then worked at another place called the Boston Sail Loft, which I worked at. And he has a great perspective. He contributed greatly to the peripheral knowledge section of the book. She contributed to attitude, aptitude, and appearance. And then I had another friend who was actually still working behind the bar, 47 years in, right? Still working behind the stick. He was at the Fairmount Copley, and he was in a union job. So he had all that, they actually got paid an hourly wage, a decent hourly wage, right? Whereas we were getting paid $250 or, well, who knows, back in the day, I can't remember what it would be now, what it was then. So he got the unemployment, he got the bump, he got the whole 9 yards. So he'd come down and we just chat about stuff, and we just went over all this stuff. And I believe that he has all the goods, right? He's one of those guys, if you met him, you'd go see Phil every time you went to Boston. And that's what we would do. Now I don't know anybody in town anymore at this stage of my game. So I just pieced it all together and just started writing and editing and editing and editing and editing. Because, I'm a guy that didn't do any better than a C in English comp. So it's like, so we had help.
Oh, you know what? I love this. I'm just like flashing back going, okay, all the times and I love frequenting restaurants here in the city that I live in, and we frequent bars. And what's really interesting is my wife and I, we'll usually sit at a table. We'll sit right at the bar. And the reason being is you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know how you're going to, enter into a conversation, but it's how fast can somebody start greeting you and start talking with you. And these are just all skills that I believe help you in the world of sales. It's about connecting. It's about relating, Neil. And I mean, I can listen to you. I'm sure you're full of stories. I could listen to you all day long with all these stories, but it's just so fascinating. If you can just position yourself, and I'm real strategic with it, is where you sit and all that, but it's who you meet. And Daryl, you know what this was reminding me of is your friend Ansel Lee, who's been on the podcast, who has conversations in coffee shops because you never know who you're going to meet. This is fascinating stuff, Neil.
Never take the same home. When I was a road guy, never take the same road home. Eat in a different restaurant. Get to find out where the guy who buys but at that time I was in the shoe and athletic apparel business. This guy, we knew where he ate. So we showed up where he ate, and tried to, didn't intrude on him, but stayed there enough times to finally have a conversation with the guy and get going. And so then they get to see you in a more personal light. But yeah, I do the same thing. And it's I would suggest, and the good news is about when you go sit at the bar, people who sit at the bar want to talk to other people. That's why they sit at the bar. That's why you sit at the bar, Larry. I mean, it's like, it's you're not shy. You want to have a conversation. You want to hear, that's when we do our Dale Carnegie though, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Yep.
Let's use them in that proportion. Let's hear their story. Let's not be overtaking. Let's not one better them, fellas. You know what a one better is, don't you?
Is that the one up? Is that I call it one up? Is that,
OB. We go OB.
Oh, that's great. But you should hear my story. Yeah. This, one of the books that is on my stack right now that I've started reading is a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And I love the title. It really jumped off when a friend of mine referred it through to me. And I think that when you think about hospitality and you think about, the role of a bartender, and the parallels to sales are really, really powerful. So I'm curious, as you put the book together, when you think about being a bartender and then being in sales, what are some of the principles that stood out the most to you in terms of, hey, if we get this right, this is really going to help our sales effectiveness?
Well, I think what we did was, and actually we're doing it in the workbook when you think back, oh, I wish I'd done this, wish I'd done that. The overarching message in the book is the golden rule, right? If I'm sitting there and I'm doing a deal, I'm quoting on something, or I'm working on a project, whatever, I say, how would I want this done if it were me, right? So then in each chapter, it's the same situation. So they're all simple. None of this stuff is splitting the atom, but it's so important. And so the first thing that we talk about is the beginning, the importance of the proper greeting. How are you saying hello, right? So and so as you know, if we're quoting Dale, smile, greet them properly, don't look like you're having a bad day, right? Same thing if you're walking into a bar. Who wants to walk in with somebody with a frown on? Because you just came in, Larry, you and your wife want to go sit at the bar. You want to be entertained to some degree. Guy doesn't have to, guy or gal doesn't have to, break up, start balancing plates, but let's have a conversation. Let's tell me about the area, whatever that may be. And And then how are you going to take this relationship to the next level? So the example I use, and I don't know in your areas of the world, but here it's so noticeable. I'm not a big DIY project guy, but I do have to go to a hardware store now and again for something, right? So you used to go to Home Depot, right? And you go in and there'd be a sea of orange aprons ready to help you, right? How can I help you? Where are you going? What's your project? Tell me what your budget is. Oh, let me take you over there. Oh, here's the good, the better, the best. You're being service. They're being hospitable.
Mm.
It's a ghost town now.
Yep.
So you know what we do? Go to Beltates, right around the corner. Guess what happens? You walk in. How you doing? What's going on? What's your project? How can I help you? Let me take you over there. I was at a lunch place that I go to often. Matter of fact, he is mentioned in the book as well. His place. It's so efficient. It's so incredibly hospitable. And the guy who was from Beltates, this Beltates hardware store, the paint guy was there. I looked at him and said, "Hey, you're the paint guy from Beltates, aren't you?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, "Great job. You did an unbelievable job servicing me." He goes, "Thank you." Right? So the simple things. And I think, I don't know, I don't know what the numbers are, what they look like for these people, but they cannot be doing more business than they used to. They may be doing more commercial business, but and so they may have refocused on the construction guys and all that, the carpenters, but they're not getting the people who don't know what they're doing, that they used to. So that's out of the gate. And that old adage, as you might well imagine, that I associate with that is, never get a second shot at the first impression.
Yep.
Simple, right? So you start out that way, and then boom. So now you've got that. So, and then once again, as we just talked about, how are you gonna get this relationship to the next level? Well, that's where old Dale comes back in. Let them talk about themselves, tell you about their project. Don't interrupt. Don't want better. Don't talk over them. Don't expert them. Listen and just keep listening. And that's what a bartender does. Listen to what they're saying. Make suggestions where appropriate. I just really don't know what I want tonight. Well, tell me. Do you like vodka? You're more a tequila person. Oh, you're a brown looking person. Have you ever had an old fashioned? We make a mean old fashioned. Now we smoke them. You're going to see these things. Now I couldn't get by now. It'd be crazy. But now they smoke them. So what are they doing? They're doing the same thing that we would do in front of any type of customer. I say the only difference between a bartender and a person in a selling capacity, outdoor sales, outside sales, whatnot, is the customers come to them.
Mm.
Right? We have to go hunt them. We got to go prospect and all that. So there's one. I mean, the second. So now you've won this over. What's the next move? Well, next move is you're going to get an appointment, and how you show up, like being on time, right? Time management skills, 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes. So there's the old adage that's going with that baby. We're in the process of developing this workbook. So I'm literally writing it right now. So 15 minutes is the new on time. And so, and how are you, and if you're having difficulty, how are you managing your day? Can you multitask? Are you delegating the stuff that you shouldn't be doing? Those type of simple things. And it's the same. So if you come in, so now fast rewind to the bar, you come in and I came in late, right? And now I'll take it one step further. One chapter is the most organized win, because these kind of dovetail. The most organized wins. So if you show up late, you sit down and your materials or your computer isn't working or whatever that may be, now you're completely behind the eight ball. So now in a restaurant bar, so if you show up, so you come on the bar and you're late. So you've number one, you've hurt your teammates, because you rely on your other bartenders and your barbacks, and they had to stay late. They may have to do your prep work, and we rely on teamwork and collaboration especially in the bars I worked, they were very high volume bars. And so you needed the assistant. So you become that guy that shows up late, doesn't do it prep work, leaves early. Now you go, and then nobody. So now your station, you're hoping that the guy set it up. So you come in, you want a drink, and I haven't cut my oranges yet or my limes, so I'm not organized. So you look awful. Oh, hold on, I'm going to cut one for you right now. So it's the same thing as if you're walking into if you're in a boardroom and you're not prepared. It's just blatantly obvious, and it does not look good. And it's the same. There's a couple other things that I can think of off the top of my head, and I love this one because this is a great. Larry, you wanted a good bar story. This is a good one. So, taking ownership when a business problem arises, right? So there was a guy I worked with. My first job, my first successful sales jobs, I should say. I had a little fits and starts in New York for about 8 months. Was when I sold for a food company. So I sold back into the places I just left, right? And the guy was kind of a mentor of mine. And he was the wise acre sales guy, right? Always giving you a hard time, like to drink a beer, good guy. And then in that business, you had to cover people's routes. That was your training. You'd go out and you'd go travel with the guy or gal, learn their techniques, and then cover their route. And one of the things he told me, and this one stuck with me. I mean, stuck with me forever, obviously, because I put it in the book, and I acknowledged him, and he was almost in tears when I gave him the book signed, and I showed him his name. And I said, and it was, when ever anything goes wrong, start here. So what was my role in this? How could I have done better? Don't start lashing out at the guy. If the guy, the driver left it on the truck. They didn't pick it in the warehouse. Boy, those people that my customer service person is always messing up. Nobody looks good in that, right? So, and then I always say the best thing to do is solve the problem without the customer ever knowing. Now, back to the bar story. So this woman comes into the bar and she says, I'd like a vodka martini straight up. So my buddy Dennis Mayer, that's his real name in the book. I call him something else. I didn't ask anybody's permission. So I don't even know where he is. I'd like to see him again because he's a great guy, brilliant guy. So Dennis, by the way, he designed this whole organizational system in this bar I worked at. He laid it all out to where we didn't have to move. So back to the organizational part, we didn't have to move 3 feet in any direction. It was all right there. So Dennis pours back to Dennis and the vodka martini. He pours the vodka martini, gives it to the woman. She takes a sip. She goes, that's not dry enough. Okay. So Dennis comes over to me. He goes, it's not dry enough, huh? I've been doing this 15 years. I haven't put a drop of vermouth in a martini yet. So what does he do? He makes it again right in front of her. Not in an obnoxious way. Not like, hey, look at me, whatever. But he made it so that she saw what he did. She took a sip out of it. She goes, that's the one. So the lesson there in the taking ownership of it, right? He could have gotten a beef with her. He could have said, "Oh no." He could have told her what he told me. It would have glazed over, and it's back then, vodka martini was probably $2.50. That's how long ago this was, fellas. Miller Light were $1.30. Right now, this is in the heart of Boston, right? One of the top, at least I don't know what it is now, but it's one of the top bars or not. But there's a classic example of just taking care of the problem. What do we lose? An ounce in a martini, probably 2 ounces of booze. But we keep the customer. She's happy. Is it one that we want to keep? We're not sure, but let's not throw her out. We don't need to fire her just yet. So those are like, and then the I would suggest the final, really what we hope for, and this is a really cool story too. My mother-in-law lives in the Villages. Are you familiar with Florida? All the Villages. It's America's hometown, right? America's friendliest hometown. It used to be their tagline. It's where it's over 55 and it's huge, and it just keeps growing. I mean, it's about an hour. It started out about 90 minutes north of Orlando, Florida. Now I think it's a half an hour. That's how far it's grown. So, but it's, the food is suspect, right? Everything's kind of fried and whatnot. And we eat a certain way, and that's not usually what we eat. They had a nice steakhouse on campus. So we take my mother-in-law to the steakhouse. And we haven't finished the book yet. And so we take the corner. So Larry, you're a bar guy. I don't know if you are, Daryl, but if there's three of you, you want that corner of the bar, right? Because now you got like a little table. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? You can all see each other. See, we all do the same stuff. So my mother-in-law was to the right, my wife was in the middle, and I was on the left. And bartenders were immediately engaging us. They were checking my mother-in-law's ID. She's 80 at the time, 82 years old. And so yada yada. And we met earlier in the day because we just latched onto the place because it's got the best food around, and so he continued to engage us and talked about the menu. And I said, and what I'm not a big red meat eater. It's not I don't eat red meat, but I just don't eat a lot of it. I'd rather have a bowl of chili than a fillet, to be honest with you. And so I said, what? I really like a pork chop when I come to a steakhouse because they give you the thick ones and whatnot. So he goes just like this with his hand, points to the menu, and I looked at him and says, "That one, is that the one?" He goes, "That's the one." Okay, that's what I'm having. So he led us. He's telling us about the menu. He's giving us guidance, right? We're having this back and forth. So the next day I finished the final chapter, and it's called Hospitality Happiness. And that is the symbiotic relationship you create when I'm loving what you're doing and you're loving what I'm doing. Right? The bartender's got hour, 2 hours, maybe to do that. We may be developing, we've got, in our current business that's 27 years old, we've got customers that we've had for 27 years. So we've got hospitality happiness with them. Symbiotic. They like what they're doing. They treat us good. We treat them good. And it's just like, and that is, even to making sure that we're in line price wise. So
good.
Yeah.
So many great lessons here, Neil, and all of this. I know folks listening in are thinking, how can I get more Neil Rogers in my life? So tell us, where can we get the book, and how can we get more bar tips?
So the book, what we've been doing, because sometimes Amazon search criteria is a little funky. So we send them to our it's called positiveactivity.net. That's awesome. That is our trademark program that my wife and I have developed. That is, we mentioned it in chapter 14, I think, of the book. And that's where we take people through the process of getting your mindset right so that you're in an area of positivity, which takes you to a place of open-minded, divergent thinking, solution providing, creativity. And then we put in steps of business development, productivity. And we suggest that if you do this for 90 days, you won't recognize where you came from.
I love it. Stuff. I love it. Neil, thank you so much for sharing time with us today. I wish we could pull a chair up to your bar. We will.
Let's do it again.
I want to come. I tell you what, Daryl, I want to go hang out with Neil Rogers one of these days.
That's right. Neil, really appreciate you, and thank you for sharing time with us here at Selling from the Heart.
Thank you, awesome. Guys. Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome.
Well, Larry, so many great applications here, and the parallels, just thinking about all the parallels in terms of the experience that gets created by a great bartender and the experience we can create as sales professionals. Fantastic.
And here's what I want everyone. Here's some key takeaways. And I mean, there was a lot of them in our discussion with Neil. Is it goes back to the simple things. people. We live in this technology crazed, digitally crazed world. But again, it goes back to all the great ones of the years past. It's people focused.
That's
It's
right.
learning how to connect and relate. And it's the simple things. It's just like what Neil started off. It's just the simple things. Simple things. If you can't do the simple things, you're never going to be able to do the big things. It's all about how you connect to people. So much gold. You know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to watch this over and over again. I can hear Neil talk all day long.
Well, I love it. And this has been a great conversation. And by the way, if you're new to the Selling from the Heart podcast, we're glad you're here. Every week we tee up very powerful conversations with heart-centered professionals, all in this pursuit of saying, what does it mean to sell from the heart? And we've got a great roster of guests coming up throughout the winter and spring. So make sure to like or subscribe. And thank you to everybody who's leaving reviews on the podcast. It helps us spread the word as we grow this movement of authenticity right here in this sales profession we all love. Larry, I'm excited about the new year and all that's ahead.
We got some treats. Just wait. We promise you. It's just right around the corner, but there's going to be some good surprises over the coming weeks.
Thank you to everybody in our insiders group. Join us at a future up close and personal. Go to sellingfromtheheart.net/free-pass to get your free pass to our next up close and personal. And in the meantime, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, show incredible hospitality, and most of all,
Sell from the heart.